Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Smith. I'm with Bentley Systems. So Bentley Systems had a major operation here in Dublin, about 150 people. It's their EMEA headquarters. I'm responsible for project-wise sales within the EMEA region. So what I'd like to focus on this morning is really around the Bentley story and just the CDE. Very quickly, just do a quick introduction to Bentley offerings, BIM and information management, and how ProjectWise is supporting BS 1192 and PAS 1192. So from a Bentley perspective, our whole approach is towards a common data environment over the asset lifecycle, from the concept design through the construction, project management, to the actual handover to the client and the operations and maintenance. So it starts with your modeling, your information modeling through your integrated projects, and ultimately into your asset-wise, your asset management and operations. The key about Bentley is its interoperability. If you've chosen certain design solutions, our solutions are interoperable. We're not asking you to change your design tools. If you've chosen specific facilities management or asset management tools, we'll review that with you and check if we can actually interoperate with them. So if you've got Maximo or Primavera or things like that, we're not asking you to change them, it's more we can maybe help you be more efficient in how you're using them. So the focus this morning, as I said, is purely on the common data environment, the integrated project side of things, and how ProjectWise can help facilitate a common data environment for your projects. So it's all about the modeling, the data, and the asset performance ultimately. And through Bentley and the solutions that we provide, it's a broad portfolio, and we will provide you with a common environment for comprehensive project delivery that links your individual users, your projects, and ultimately your enterprises across your various projects. So if I may, I'd like to give it a start. So just to pick on something that Alan mentioned in his presentation, we keep talking about BIM, but at Bentley we talk about information management, information modeling, information mobility. And whether you have a B for building, an R for road, a U for utility, the practices and the information, it's all about the data. The data is the key component that you want to involve. And so as you saw from the video there, Bentley covers many projects. We're not just involved with building. We cover across utilities, roads, bridges, railways, tunnelling. Obviously you can see some landmark buildings there from the UK and elsewhere around the world where Bentley has been involved. So there is, from talking with some people here, a perception that Bentley is just infrastructure. We're not, we cover everything. And what I'd like today is show how ProjectWise, where it's scalable from the SME scale up to those larger projects. So again, it's all about the data. I can go really quickly through this. Everyone has shown this this morning. But it's really focusing on the BS 1192, it's around the project delivery, and also on the information drops that have to take place. And what is the level of detail as you progress through the project, as mentioned earlier this morning as well, is do you put everything in for the first drop when the client just wants a concept? So it's critical that the level of detail is captured as you pass through. So as we look at how BIM is evolving, so what are the real issues? What is seen? So we've seen modeling, training, etc. So that's what people typically think of when they think about BIM, and that makes people warm and fuzzy and say, yeah, that's great. But in reality, as Alan alluded to and the other speakers alluded to, there's so much other information. To do BIM properly, to capture all the information associated with the project, the asset that you're involved in, you need to understand exactly, okay, what is hidden, what do we need to have behind the scenes that will support our clients' decisions and help to ensure that the asset is fit for purpose when it is constructed. So we like to think of that as the top section is our 3D modeling centric approach to BIM, but the lower part, or the larger part of the iceberg, if you want, is all around the information management. The additional information that really adds value to the project and will help the client and the operations and maintenance teams actually manage that asset once it's constructed. So this is thanks to one of my colleagues. He says, so I got it. Data exchange and collaboration are actually the same thing. So if we take a step back, and this is the traditional curve, if you like. You've got across the x-axis, we have the various stages of the asset life cycle, and on the y-axis, we have the level of information required. So traditionally, before BIM, we designed, we built, we sent the information to the field, and then if we found a problem in the field as construction had already started, we had to do in-field changes, request changes to documentation. That cost money, cost time, and we had to basically rework things. So we're trying to move away from that. And ideally what we want to do is bring the curve back to the left. We want to be able to visualize what we want to do with the asset in a virtual world, in a virtual model, identify issues before they get to the field so that we're confident that when information gets issued to the field, it's accurate, reliable, and it's getting to the right person at the right time for the purpose that they need it. So ultimately, we end up just left with the handover. Implies we've got this massive single model with all of the data, all of the information contained within it. Actually, what we'd like to call that, and I've heard the term BIM repository used this morning already, it is a BIM repository. You've got your models, you've got all your metadata associated with the asset. And the thing is to take that information now and be able to transfer it into operations and maintenance. So bring it from left to right. As they say, begin with the end in mind, do it once, and reuse it and repurpose it as often as you need to. So as you can see, each individual contributor, if you like, across the bottom has a defined period. If you look, for example, this could be design and architectural practice. At some stage, they reach the maximum of their input to the project. They've done their part of the work project. So they finish their expert knowledge and they pass that information, or they make it available, I should say, to the rest of the project team and say, here's our design intent. So as that moves on, it's still available through the rest of the project. So as other disciplines, as the construction phase goes through, it's still there available as a reference to say, okay, well, this is the information we have today, and we reference it back to the design intent and the actual published information from the architect. So again, it's not a single model, and if you assume information travels across the life cycle. So again, we talked about level of detail. So you've got the design intent, you've got rough details, you've got the construction, and then you've got the fittings and furnishes. Again, level of detail. But again, it's all referenceable and interoperable. It's the same thing again. But to achieve this, we've got the various disciplines involved in the project. In this purpose, we've got, say, four companies working at the bottom, and one final company who's doing all the final finishings. What they're using is typically, they're going to use best-in-class design tools. It's not going to be any preferred vendor. It can be a Bentley solution, Autodesk, Graphisoft. They're going to use the tool that's best suits their requirement. So that presents a challenge because we need to actually manage that information all the way through the life cycle. So we've got multiple file formats potentially. The ideal scenario is the client is educated and they say, I want a standard deliverable, a standard way of working across the project. In reality, that happens very, very seldom. I think I'm only aware of one scenario where that has happened. So you end up with multiple file formats. So what you need to do is be able to manage that effectively. And what we have there is the management of information all the way through, and it becomes about, after handover, it becomes management of change. If you change something, what else can you potentially impact? So as an asset evolves and matures, there may be expansions, there may be retrofits, but you need to be able to take the information from the original intent and update it based on the latest changes. And it's being able to carry that information all the way through that is a key thing. And BS 1192 is the way that Bentley set up our project-wise offering to support this. So project-wise enables the information to be managed from the concept, design, through construction and into operations. So project-wise here is a brand. There's a suite of capabilities available, so just to clarify that. But it also provides you the ability to make information mobile. It take information on your handheld device to the field, do markups, sync that back with your project-wise environment. You're not changing the file or the model that's been sent to you on your handheld. You actually create a transparency that captures the information and captures that as a reference file within ProjectWise to say, I have a dependency from this model that was captured from data in the field, and here's who actually created that information. So again, looking at the 3D modeling, think back to the iceberg, the 3D modeling at the top, the information modeling, and really it expands the information to all stakeholders who are involved with the project. From the concept design to the construction, operations and maintenance, and ongoing activities. Again, multiple file formats. Traditional, so iModel is a Bentley proprietary solution for managing inputs, or for delivering project information. So for creating a snapshot in time of your model for the federated approach and issuing that to the project team. Again, it's read-only, but the information is there. An example could be you have a model that's 150 megabytes of information. You create an iModel that will contain all of that information, all the provenance, source, etc., and it'll transfer as an 8 gigabyte iModel to your handheld device. So it gives you that flexibility, and you're not too worried about constraints on your handheld device. And just how you can input those outputs. Paper documents still used, starting to move away, but more and more people are now using their handheld devices and mobile technology to really take advantage of the power of BIM and the information that's contained in BIM delivered projects. So again, it covers everything from, on the left, is a 3D city all the way back to the geospatial, the georeferencing. As was alluded to this morning, every project has a location. It's somewhere on the world, somewhere on the planet, so it has to have exact locations. So you need to understand exactly what it is you're building and where it's actually going to be located. So some companies or projects where Bentley solutions have been used. Again, this looks like it's only for large organizations. Yes, but they push this down into their supply chain. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 companies have experience of using ProjectWise. Yes, they use it as a project-wise, as a user, and to answer the query from earlier about how do you control access, I'll get to that a bit more, is depending on the discipline that you're working with, depending on your rights within that discipline, you will have certain accesses and ability to see information at certain times within the project. So for example, if you're a structural engineer and you're waiting for the architect to finish their information, you don't see his WIP until he shares it. And then you'll get a notification in ProjectWise that you have an action required, and you go and then action that based on that. So that's a way of controlling who and what, and this can be down to the file level, the folder level. It really depends on how you want to set up your ProjectWise environment. So I'm going to skip the next one. So really we're talking about BS 1192 and PAS 1192, and what does that actually physically look like in practice. So BS 1192 covers level 1 and level 2. Level 3 covers the operations, but if you get level 1 and level 2 right, what carries forward into level 3 should be a natural progression of the BIM process associated with the infrastructure project. We saw this earlier on, an example of this again. The traditional collaboration was everyone sharing information with no real structure, whereas Bentley's approach has been, for the last 20 years, has always been the federated approach, where individual contributors, you contain ownership of your information, but you publish it to a shared environment as and when you're ready to share it. You retain ownership. We then can create an iModel based on the amalgamation of the information from various contributors and push that to the people who need it to review it or to see exactly where the project is at this moment in time. So again, I'll go quickly through this. So again, we're talking about there's data drops and there's interactions at various levels across a project. It's not just from the main contractor to the client, it's from the main contractor to the design leads, to contractor leads, and then from there down into their tiered suppliers. And we need to be able to manage and control all of this information and these data transactions in a secure environment that there's always only one single source of truth. So with ProjectWise, there's only ever one single source of truth. You have a full audit trail, you have revision, version, status histories, and you can also view historical documents, but you can't open them. The only person who can actually go back in and maybe step back to a previous version if there's been a major error would be the administrator who is in charge of the project, and that would be a senior project level decision to actually make any changes at that stage. But that's an exception. If everything is set up correctly, these workflows, the access privileges, the interoperability with various design solutions, the various file formats. ProjectWise will also manage IFCs. So if people are delivering information in IFC, we can actually manage that within the ProjectWise environment. Also, once a file or a model gets captured into IFC, it's managed, and we use Delta file transfer to actually manage it. So if the first time you pull a model or a file out of ProjectWise onto your local machine, it'll pull the full information down for you. But every subsequent time after that, it will, behind the scenes, very quickly send a request to your integration server and say, I've got this model, is it the latest version? It will go and see who the owner of that information is, check what version they have, and if there's any changes, you will get the delta. So you don't get a multi-gig file uploading and downloading every time. It's only the delta file transfer that actually takes place. So for large organizations, or maybe there's bandwidth issues within your organization, the ability to only be transferring delta file transfers versus full-blown models across your network will really help efficiencies. So what are the advantages of adopting a common data environment or a single source? As I said, it's a single source of truth, full tracking and traceability. It's available 24/7, so if you've got a major deadline, you've got a project team working through the night, it doesn't matter. The latest information is always available. You can very quickly locate and verify data. ProjectWise has a very, very strong or very, very powerful search engine, and it can search down to phrases or terms within a document. It implements mandatory approvals. So once you set this up, as the guy said, if as Robert was saying earlier on, you get a call from the structural guy, hey, can you send me over a copy of that electrical drawing? No. You need, the information has to be delivered at the right time when it's fit for purpose to the right person. And that's a critical thing. Ownership of information, again, with the federated approach, the architects own their information. They publish it when it's ready to be published. Mechanical guys, same. Civils, similarly. So, surveyors, similar thing. You can have your information stored. For large point cloud type files, there's also a way of streaming that information. So you think of Google Earth. You start off with a low resolution view of Ireland. As you zoom in, you get more and more information. It starts pulling that information. You have similar capability within ProjectWise to do that with large point cloud information. And again, obviously, having shared information and ensuring that there's only one single source of truth, it ensures the right information is available at the right time to the right person for the right purpose. Again, that's the key thing. So ProjectWise, we have our BS 1192 rules engine built into our ProjectWise offering. This was developed with the team who developed the BS 1192 2007 standard. So we work closely with those guys in the UK. So as the PAS changes are issued, we look to see if there's any impact to what we need to do with our rules engine. And per PS 1192-2, ProjectWise is compliant with the intent of that. So again, it's something that's available on the market. So the key thing around, one key thing is the naming convention. So the project name, the originator code. Actually, I'll answer the next slide. Actually, you should probably show this a bit better. This is your attribute template within ProjectWise. So when you set up your project, as you're constructing your project, you will get a template like this that you will pre-populate initially. So as you can see, a lot of these fields, I'm not sure you can see it on the screen, are actually grayed out, which means as the administrator is setting up the project, they're pre-populated. So only the white boxes need to be changed by the designer for the file that he's working on. So it means you're really just tracking minimal information. So this, the file number there in the middle, that's per the BS 1192 standard. But within ProjectWise, you can give that file a more meaningful name for your team. So for example, if it's an architect and you want it ground floor, you just call it ground floor architectural. And basically the guys have a very quick reference when they go into ProjectWise to see, okay, that's the file I'm interested in. They're not trying to figure out, oh, what's AS1B? Yeah, no, you can give this a common name. And also this is your title block integration. So if you're publishing any drawings or any deliverables, you have your title block integration that can be built in. This can be configured as well, so you can add in your own logo. And also if you need to make it customized, we can help you with that if there's customizations required. So what does it look like in practice? This is a screenshot of a ProjectWise environment. And at the moment we're highlighting an architectural file, and it is the third floor internal file. But as you can see, even in this snapshot, there's multiple file formats. We're capturing, we've got AutoCAD, we've DWG files, we've iModels, we've DGNs. So a combination of information is being captured. ProjectWise will manage probably high 90 percentile of any type of file information that's out there, office documents, PDFs. Majority of design solutions can be managed within a ProjectWise environment, including Revit. So for those of you who have Revit figure or asking the question, can I use ProjectWise with Revit? Yes, you can. So the key thing to look at here is we're constantly talking about revision, version control, and design status. So per the BS 1192 requirements for project delivery and the ability to manage and control the information, we're capturing that information. And you'll also, as I just scroll forward, sorry. You'll see you get a full history. This is not very clear, unfortunately, here. You get a full history of any changes on it. Any file, any model, any document will be captured. as you go through. So you have a full audit trail. If someone asks, can you show me the audit trail for such a model, you have that within ProjectWise. So I am conscious of time. So really what ProjectWise can help you do, it can help you enforce BS and PAS 1192 practices within your organization. So as work progresses through work in progress, the recommendations from the UK are embodied, so P1-1, P1-2, etc. And when it's signed off, it becomes, excuse me, so it becomes P.1 when it's actually signed off and approved for issue. So again, access control. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but across the top, just on this section here, you have all the attributes: edit, view, no access, etc. So depending on, and every member of your team will be allocated a user privilege and be assigned to a specific work group, whether that be the architecture group, mechanical group, civils group. So you can really control who sees what information. So for example, some of the design team within the electrical side of things may not need to see a lot of information associated with the architects beyond a certain level. Similarly, civils may not need to see some other information. If they don't need to see it, they don't need to have access to it. So you can actually configure that within your ProjectWise environment. So just in the interest of time. So this is Bentley's approach to, as we say, the whole asset life cycle. So if we break it down, you've got your performance information model, you've got your design, build and procure, you've got your asset performance, your operating and maintenance, and then you've got your ongoing asset and project portfolio management. So to tie this all together, you're looking at your asset life cycle information management, and it's Bentley's philosophy and approach is to enable you to take the information from the beginning of the asset all the way through to the end of its life cycle. And why is that important? As people have alluded to already, pretty much 80% of the costs incurred on any asset is incurred during the operations and maintenance. So if you're able to reuse and repurpose information from the design and construct phase, that helps you run a more efficient and capable asset. That's what I said. So again, just what ProjectWise, what it brings. So people asked the move to cloud. We've already heard A-Site, IBM, both have cloud-based solutions. With Bentley, you have the option. You can go on-premise, or you can go in the cloud, or you can do a hybrid. You can decide which information you want to have in the cloud and which information you want to have on-premise. And really, that's up to you. If you want to learn more of how we do that, or how we can support you with that, I'm more than willing to take any questions afterwards or follow up with you. And two of the key applications that help you with information mobility are the Navigator Connect Edition and our ProjectWise Worksite app, which also captures field data. You can capture field data on a form, snag list, punch list, whatever you want to call it, and feed that information back to the design team to get changes captured. So again, ProjectWise Worksite, it's document-based visibility. It does have a development app, so you can actually develop your own interfaces to so say for example into SAP or into some other data sources that you're using for other information that's not traditionally, if you like, related to the design data, but more operational information. You can create interfaces into those repositories. And Bentley Navigator gives you the ability to review information basically on your handheld, on your desktop, or even on those large touchscreen TVs now, where you can actually zoom in, get all the information, click on a pump, and give you all the information, the vendor, when it was installed, etc., when it was last maintained. So through the Bentley solution and with the new Connect Edition, which was launched last month, we're really taking this whole asset lifecycle and the ability to connect users, projects and enterprises together, we think to a next level. We've already got over 20 years experience of doing this. Bentley doesn't do anything else, we just deal with infrastructure projects. I heard a concern earlier about longevity of file formats. Bentley has file formats. Bentley's DGN file format carries forward into the new Connect edition. So you can have DGN files that were created 15, 20 years ago that you can open in the current Connect edition without any issue. There's no transformation required. There's no big project to get that information reusable. It's there. Once you have it available, it can be pulled into the latest version of the solutions.
Proprietary though. Bentley may not exist forever.
Well, the DGN format has been around for... Yeah, I mean, and we do...
It's still a privately owned format.
Correct.
It is.
Yeah, and we do, but we are, as I said, we do support IFCs. We are certified to support IFCs. We're heavily involved with IFCs. And I mean, IFCs are being used, but we find there are some clients, depending on the type of project, who prefer to have an iModel at this stage. When IFC gets to the same level of complexity and the information richness that you get with an iModel, I think more and more clients will start looking for that. I think it's only a matter of time, but at the moment that's
dangerous territory, you know. You're lucky that's the end.
That's it.